Brace yourself for a massive petrol price hike on Wednesday. 93 unleaded petrol is going up by 95 cents a litre, while 95 unleaded is going up by R1. The weak rand against the dollar is being blamed for the rise in prices. The blockage in the Suez Canal has also affected the price of crude oil worldwide. So let's unpack it then. I'm joined by Northwest University transport economist Ufense Mokoena to unpack it all. Ufense, record prices for fuel. It's easy to think, myopically about ourselves and our little, sedan, our hatchback, and, those who drive SUVs. But this has impact beyond just the household, ripple effects across the economy.
Yes, usually that's what happens. Usually what we see is that when there's a fuel price hike, especially when it's over a long period of time, then there are substantial impacts. But remember that our fuel prices, basically the fuel prices that we see at our pump this month actually reflects what was happening last month. So it's always just about adjustments and catching up to some of the events that took place in the previous month.
Talk to me about the reasons why we're seeing this increase. It's a cocktail of factors that are at play at the moment.
Yes, you're quite accurate. It is a mix of different types of factors, but what we're seeing is that if you look at how steep this is, you can compare it to June, July last year, which was basically a rise from 13 Rand to 15 Rand, and then we've just been on a steady increase from January till now, and it's been up at nearly about R1, almost at about R1 each month, and so we've been gradually, racking up the cumulative effects of the market. So on one hand, you've got the COVID-19 pandemic's effects on supply and demand. OPEC is basically opening up, and they're basically going to be pushing their supply up, but then it's not that high from their from their reference reference supply. The second factor is really what we're seeing is our rand, but the ratio is 6-1. So basically 60 cents of the change comes from commodity price changes. Then the rest is coming from the fuel levy that's kicking in now, and the road accident fund levy that's also kicking in now in April.
Yeah, in fact, those figures were mentioned by the finance minister in his budget, an increase of 27 cents a litre on the fuel levy, 11 cents a litre for the road accident fund levy, and an increase of 1 cent for the carbon fuel levy, also announced by the minister in February during his budget. So which sectors are likely to be hit the hardest, Ufense? I've seen the taxi association, Santaco, talking about the real possibility that they might have to hike fares. But actually, if you think about it, I imagine that trucking, logistics, and even those industries that supply other industries like, those who transport coal, for example, will also be hit hardest.
Yeah, so what happened during, let's say, 2018, towards the end of 2018, when we touched the 17 Rand mark, what the big effect was basically the Department of Energy intervened, and they sort of cushioned us from a further hike dynamic, and we paid for that a little bit, but from there we stabilized. So there is a macro cushion that is possible. But then on the other hand, yes, it is natural that you see sectors like the road freight industry, like the taxi or public transport environment also responding to this. But we have to sort of tread a little lightly in a sense that, the global market or the global economy is anticipating the travel demand to pick up once the vaccine rollouts start kicking in, and once travel basically goes back to normal. And when travel goes back to normal in inverted commas, then the demand for fuel also starts to increase. So there there might be, so if OPEC doesn't keep up with demand, then yes, we do expect that commodity prices will continue to surge. But then if they do manage to keep up with demand by opening up supply at a rate that is viable or suitable, then there is a much greater likelihood that this type of peak or this type of hike would be short-lived. So it is a matter of really being cautious and really being considerate about what's happening in the value chain in general. But the effects, yes, are genuine. And the challenge is figuring out how long the exposure will be for.
Great insights there, casting your eye forward in terms of what the prognosis is likely to be in as far as the fuel prices are concerned. And we're not just talking petrol here, we're talking petrol, diesel, particularly diesel, which is used by many in industry. Just lastly, Ofensa, let me ask you your own sense and your own view around issues to do with the fuel levy. What's your take as an instrument of taxation? How does that sit with you? Because I know South Africans, like many people, like everyone really, no one likes to be taxed. So in Gauteng, people are complaining about the e-tolls. If you talk about increasing VAT, there's a complaint. We saw a slight rise in as far as the tax that is charged on businesses is concerned. That is a bit unpopular from some sectors. So fuel levy, how does that sit with you as a taxation strategy?
Well, the big question is, what is the fuel levy for? If you look at, for example, in other countries, you find that there are no petrol attendants. People pour fuel for themselves. They just punch in a code, you tap your card, or you put some cash in there, and you just pour petrol. And one of the benefits of having a regulated fuel price is that you create room for other applications for it, and that's one avenue, one argument. The other argument, however, is that the road transport market does need to be controlled and managed. And the question is, where does the fuel levy go? Is it directed towards transportation, sustainable transportation, public transportation, or is it just landing in National Treasury's budget as a general fund that's coming from everybody, right? And then lastly, the big risk with having a fuel levy of this nature is that you sort of, the state might actually not be realizing the extent of the return on investment. And in fact, the public might not be receiving their return per rand that they invest in and through taxes. So those three are the main, well, at least in the literature, they're the main issues related to the fuel levy. My view is that really a balancing act. It just depends on the state's ambitions and the public's interest in either retaining jobs or getting as much as possible from every rand of tax that they get. So it's really a balancing act.
Ofensa Mokoena, I've really enjoyed this interaction with you. I've found your inputs to be quite insightful. Don't be a stranger to this show. Thank you so much. From the Northwest University transport economist there, Ofensa Mokoena, weighing in on the record price increases in as far as fuel is concerned. Believe me, we are going to feel it.